Like, what is the difference between, say, having a high sex drive and like sex addiction? Right. And I think one of the distinction is like, I love what you said, Louis, about like relating it to other addictions, which is in this case, you can do that too. It's like, can you stop? Like, can you, can you, for example, go 30 days without like opening up Grindr or watching pornography? Or can you stay away from sexually explicit content for like 30 days? Right. Like, so this idea of like, or if you're in like mid-cycle, can you like postpone it? Can you avoid it? Can you does it feel like it's out of your control, and then you were also talking about like, if you are like, you're basically not being satisfied, right? So you can keep going at it and keep going at it and keep going at it, and then like the satisfaction dwindles. A lot of like compulsive sexual behaviors are about intensity, right? It's about like checking out. It's about numbing. It's about chasing like a really good feeling, about like feeling elevated or having like an altered state. Go ahead. You were going to say?
So your definition, the definition used for sex addiction can be used for all addictions.
Right. 100%.
Like the whole idea is like, it's not about what I'm doing. It's why I'm doing it. It's like and that's, I was thinking about this because, how this disease is very insidious, because like, okay, great, I come in needing to deal with my crystal meth because it's the thing that's most obvious to me,
right?
And I deal with that, but other things like the sex and the food and other things creep up. And what's tough with that is because of these varying ideologies about it. Like I may struggle with the idea of saying that I have a sex addiction because I like sex so much and I don't want to let go of it.
With the nearly 5 years that I've been in SAA, I've learned a lot about like what might trigger someone. We have something called the 3-second rule, where you just are not supposed to like objectify someone, and you count to 3, and you have to turn your head away. Like some people in the fellowship of SAA or sex addicts, people that identify as sex addicts, they follow people down the street. They spend not only hours upon hours at a bathhouse, but days. And it's incredible how much a person can get absorbed into that. And if it's compulsive and obsessive, then I consider that addiction.
Good sex is God-given or higher power given.
That's right.
And I think that when it's done in a healthy way, it's supposed to kind of add to, not take away.
I look at this and I think to myself, this is someone who, at first blush appears to be embracing their sexuality. And then there's another part of me that's like, or are they trading one addiction for another? Right. And I see that a lot, like in the rooms, like, are we, in some cases, are people trading one addiction for another? And is it the lesser of the evils, and it is the lesser of the evils, like the health argument has often been used to like attack gay men, for example, like when we had like the HIV AIDS epidemic, right? Or then there was monkeypox, for example, and like, oh, well, it's men's compulsive sexual behavior that is leading to these things. And I think, well, that's just like one way of trying to kind of like control and categorize a group, is like to blame them for something like that. But yeah, I am often torn about it.
Yeah.
As a sex addict, I even felt jealousy, like, oh, they can go into a bathhouse and they could say enough is enough, maybe because they're not getting high on meth anymore, but they're exploring their sexuality. But if I was to go to the bathhouse, who knows when I'd leave, maybe in a year or
after
two.
8 hours.
In a year or two.
After 8 hours, because they limit it to 8 hours.
Oh, okay. You would know.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. I've had those. I've had that. I've thought about that.
I don't have the issue not to take into consideration sometimes that somebody might be struggling with it. And like even something as simple or as, in my mind, harmless as flirting. Flirting can be triggering, and it is important to be mindful. And the group, the Sober King group, I think they're great. I think they're great, especially when they're really being mindful about the folks showing up, because I struggle, and I'm sure a lot of people do, with, it took me a while to say, okay, you know what? I'm uncomfortable with this. I'm not ready for this. This is not right. This is not where I'm at. I mean, because we're adults, and I don't know, maybe in my mind I'm expecting myself to be okay and not have issues with these things, and maybe it brings on shame and discomfort or feelings of whatever those feelings are.
My takeaway today would probably be what Lewis said earlier, which is if sex has you feeling dirty during it and then after it, it's probably not a good idea, unless it's, you know, the kind of dirty that you might want. But
Yeah.
I find the chase, like, that's another takeaway. The chase always seems to be, like they say, the fantasy is always better than the reality. And finding that balance of like intimacy and sexuality, it's a challenge. It's still something I'm exploring. And I think this is a lot of food for thought today. And I really appreciate both of you for being here.
Thank you for coming on and being honest and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely.